A little late tonight, but we here. All right. I'm gonna bring in my guest. I'm 5 minutes late. Had to take care of some. But we here anyway. This is episode 12.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad
it's
to
good, my
see you,
G.
big bro. Again, more life to you. Thanking God that
Absolutely.
you had another year of life, man. That's always a blessing. Good to see you again, sir.
Likewise, brother.
Yes, sir. We're going to go ahead and get started. I believe this is episode 12. Maybe I might be wrong, but uh, episode 12, boundaries.
Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir, man. So we're here. I'm going to let you go ahead. Even though some people have probably seen, you probably been the most recycled guest on the show. So I'm
That's
pretty sure
love.
they know your face. But I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Then we're going to hop right into it, man.
Facts. Well, my name is Lawrence Souffrant. I am a pastor, a master's student. I focus on spirituality and energy. I'm a non-conventional pastor. I should probably say that. I'm not your traditional pastor. I'm pro-black everything, and I believe in giving back to the community. I got a course on masculinity, and I'm releasing a class soon. I'll talk about that later, but I'm releasing a class soon. So yeah, I don't know what else to say, man. Father, husband, teacher, I'm all of it, man.
Yes, sir, man. And again, great to have you, sir. Glad that every time I hit you, it's always a yes, sir, man. We got it, bro. So good to see you again, man. And tonight's topic, as you guys can see, or if you don't see it, is boundaries, right? Been thinking about this for some time. Different topics come in my head, whether it be situations that I'm in, situations that I see other people in, or whatever the case may be. But I feel like this is a good one because I think we're at a point now where I think a lot of people, whether it's, a friendship or a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, I think we all need to establish the boundaries in each relationship because I feel like a lot of people out there, and even I thought for a while, like only boundaries that you had are with your girlfriend or with your significant other, right? But every relationship, I've learned that every relationship, whether it's a friend, a girlfriend, husband, family member, right, needs boundaries, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
I want to dive into that, man. So the first question is, right, for people who may not know or may know or need, some review on it. What is a boundary? What is a boundary?
Very good question. Were you going to give a definition, or did you want me to talk?
Yeah, I'll let you go.
All right, so I'm gonna try to make it simple, right? Because I want people to get this, right?
For
A
sure.
boundary is meant to be a parameter that is designed to protect you from any hurt, harm, or danger. So boundaries are for you. Boundaries are not for them. Boundaries are for you. And that's important because whenever we decide to compromise in our boundaries, what we're really doing is hurting ourselves and putting ourselves in danger. And so sometimes we think about how the boundaries will make the other person feel, but only abusers are going to be offended by boundaries.
Yes.
See what I'm saying? So it's for you. It is a parameter. So it's not a wall, right? Because a wall keeps people out and it keeps you in. It isolates you. Boundaries are not walls, but they're protections in which they're parameters, which teach people how to access you. Right? Teach people how to interact with you. So every relationship requires boundaries. And like you said, whether it's romantic, whether it's friendship, whether it's business, whether it's spiritual, whether it's education, whether it's financial, like every relationship, you have to know the proper etiquette. How do we interact with each other? So if you're my friend, right? And let's say you're the type where you have different categories. So you have a friend and you got like a best friend and a close friend, whatever the case is. If you have these different levels of categories, what are the boundaries? What is appropriate? What's the proper way of interacting in each of these levels? And you're supposed to establish that. This is not a group conversation. We don't vote on this as a group. These are my boundaries, right? And what are your boundaries? And we can see if this can work.
Okay. Good. And the reason why I asked what a boundary is, to bring clarity, make sure nobody's confused on what it is. Like you said, it's not a wall. It's not to keep you hidden from everyone, but it's to protect you and keep you in a space of peace. And that somebody doesn't come and wreck your peace, right? You never want anybody to, wreck what's going on in your life. But again, I go back to the fact of, I think people really believe, and there's nothing wrong with that. It could be because of what they were taught, what they know, or what they look at on social media. I don't know, right? But it's something that makes them believe that only a romantic relationship needs boundaries. Or I feel like it's the other way around, right? If you my girlfriend, right, you supposed to do this. If you my boyfriend, you supposed to do this. And I'm not saying don't have standards, don't have needs that you want taken care of, right? But I think a lot of times we come into friendships, relationship, thinking this is what a friend is supposed to be, and everybody is supposed to fit that description. Or this is what a girlfriend is supposed to be, and every girl that comes into my life is supposed to be like this, or every man that comes into my life is supposed to be like this, without even establishing what it is that you want or look to get out of the relationship. And I think we need to start there first before we could. Well, number one, you got to start with yourself, right? What are your boundaries? What do you not want to happen? What do you have a problem with? What do you find offensive, right? Whether that's your friend, whether that's your aunt, whether that's your girlfriend, your boyfriend. I think people make excuses a lot of times because it's a boyfriend, because it's a husband, or because, like you said, the way that somebody will react or respond to it, like, wow, you keeping that up, or like, you don't want me to do that. But it's like, this is keeping the relationship intact. That's why I have this boundary in place, right? We have different things intact. So we have different things in place so friendships, relationships can stay in place in the way they need to be. So I think, like, first we need to establish what is it that you want, or what is it that you desire from a person. And all of those things that you desire can't be the same. Like the basics, obviously respect, love and things like that, right? But then it goes on, get on deeper levels. Okay, what is your love language? What is this? What is that? What makes you tick? What doesn't make you tick? What are some things that you like? What are things that you particularly want to stay away from? Right? And don't make excuses. I was talking to somebody the other day about it wasn't a podcast episode per se, but we were live just chopping it up, like me and some of my friends. And it was like, somebody was like, I asked, will there ever be an equal amount? Do you think in a relationship, I'm not talking about a romantic relationship, or even we could say friendship, right? Do you think there is a equal amount of compromise? Do you think there will ever be an equal amount of compromise? And somebody said, if both parties are willing to do that, but then most folks said, well, no, because it's either geared towards one person or the other person, right? So that some people said, most folks said they didn't feel that, what's the word? It just left me. Compromise can happen. But just like with stuff like that, man, like I feel like you can I feel like there should be an equal amount, but I'm in the ballpark of, I don't really know. Like, I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. I'm kind of in the ballpark of, I don't know, bro. Like, I honestly don't know, because the way people have relationships set up, or when you're dealing with another person, it's like, okay, kind of back to what you said, are they going to like this? Or, they may have a problem with this. So I just think it's a great time to talk about boundaries, because I don't think we need to, step away from our boundaries just because this is your girlfriend, right?
No, absolutely.
He needs to honor that too. He needs to honor that boundary as well, right? If you say no to something, it's no. If you say yes to something, it's yes, right? So I got
But let's even go a little deeper, right? Because a lot of people are in relationships for the wrong reasons.
Correct.
And so when you're in a relationship looking to find yourself, and when you're in a relationship looking to heal yourself, thinking that the relationship is going to bring that, then it's hard to keep up boundaries. It's hard to even know what the boundaries are. And so a lot of people, they engage in relationships for all the wrong reasons, and then they wonder why they can't maintain their boundaries and their standards. It's because the relationship now becomes a distraction instead of an asset, a development for you, because of distraction towards you, because you begin to look to the relationship to define who you are. And so you really can't set boundaries until you know who you are. And get this, boundaries can change, right?
Yeah.
Just because something was okay yesterday doesn't mean it's okay today, and vice versa. And so a lot of times when we're interacting with one another, we don't express what the boundaries are, because many of us have been conditioned to believe that defending myself or speaking up for myself is somehow disrespectful, right? Because when you guys are younger, because you're a grown man now, but when you was younger, if you were to tell an adult, yo, I don't like that, just saying that, some adults will look at that as disrespectful. And they don't realize that they're conditioning the children to think that if I speak up against what I don't like, then I'm going to be disrespectful to the person. And if I like you, then I don't want to be disrespectful to you. So I'm just going to eat that. And I'm going to eat that. And I'm going to eat that. And I'm going to keep letting you abuse me until I get fed up. But I don't even know I'm abusing you because we've never expressed the boundaries, right? And so it's important that you know who you are. It's important that you learn how to use your voice to say, hey, this, when someone crosses those boundaries, especially if it was never discussed, there's a way to say, hey, when you did that, I don't like that. I'm the type of person who wants X, Y, Z. And like I said before, if that other person means well, they will respect your boundaries. But it's also important to know that respecting your boundaries sometimes also means ending the relationship.
Yeah.
And so when you become codependent, when the relationship becomes an anchor in your life, the fear of losing the relationship is enough for you to accept abuse. And just think about that type of psychology, right? When is it ever appropriate for me to be abused? How could I ever say it's okay for someone to violate me just so they could stay in my life? That should be unacceptable, right? And so sometimes we got to look at why we're even engaging in relationships in the first place. And let me give this example, then I'm going to let you talk, right? That also goes with some financial relationships, right? Some people choose jobs when the job treats you like crap. If the job treats you like crap, but you're working the job because you're desperate for money. Instead of acknowledging, no, even at my workplace, I have boundaries. I might need money, but I'm not going to let the workplace rob me of my dignity, rob me of my peace, rob me of my joy. No, we're going to have a harmonious relationship, or I'm going to find me another job. That's a part of boundaries as well. You should not accept a layer or any relationship.
For sure, man. And you just drop some gems as usual, man. And I think there's a lot of people that are dealing with that right now. And I think that's why this topic is so important, right? You should never be the abused or the abuser. When somebody says, this is my boundary, and like you said, boundaries can change, people can change, right? So what was okay at first, right? Because we're all growing. We're in the process of learning, right?
Yes.
You are still learning. As a grown man, I'm still learning as a 22-year-old man, right? We never stop growing and learning unless we just stop ourselves, right? But we're constantly learning things, right? And we're constantly unlearning things too, because we see now as adults or as we get older, even some of the stuff that our parents taught us, like, nah, I'm good on that. That's not really helping me right now in this season. Because what I learned, I heard somebody say this, and it made so much sense. He was like, you know, what helped you at 6 may not help you at 16, right? You move away from some of those things because it's not useful anymore, right? Those survival skills, right, they're good, but you don't need those anymore in this space, right? You need some other skills. So you have to unlearn some of those things. It's not to say that you don't appreciate it, but there's some new things that you need to learn, right? Even some of the ways that we learn from our parents, even in school, we get to college or we get on our own, or we have our own jobs, and we like, nah, that's not gonna work for me, or nah, this is probably the best move, right? So that's a great point, honestly, because a lot of people, you touched on something, and I see this a lot, man. And I just, I'm like so passionate about helping people, or like making sure, like, you know, like, bro, I got you, or like, and even if I don't know you, like, I just, like, I want to help somebody, bro. But I realize, like, you even said it to me, like, bro, you can't save the world. Like, that's that was never in the plans. Like that was never your job. Only thing you can do is point them to a source, whether that be Jesus, whether that be knowledge, whatever that case may be. But me, sometimes, even now, I'm understanding, I'm getting better with it. But even now, it's just like, bro, I wish you got it. Like, I wish you, like, knew. But it's like, it all stems back to your upbringing. It all stems back to your environment, right? If you've been treated like crap your whole life, that's what you're going to think is the norm, right? If you've seen somebody do something a certain way, you've seen multiple people do it a certain way, you're going to do it a certain way. Now, there's the few people that say, well, mom did it this way, and I see where that got her, and I'm not going to do that. Or I see where this relationship got my friend, and I'm not going to do that. But it's very few people that look at stuff like that. Majority of people are like, oh, this is the norm. This is how I'm supposed to be treated, right? But you said something that I even apply to my life, like stop with the normalize this, normalize that, because it sounds like you want a co-signer to agree on the things that you actually feel like should be done. No, just do. Like if you feel like this is what needs to be done, then operate on that, right? Don't try to get a body of people to be like, yeah, this is the way, because everybody don't think that's the way. And that's okay, right? So, but when you say you want this type of relationship, or you want a man to do this, you want a woman to do that, you got to look at, like, what are you letting that woman do, right? So what are your boundaries? Like, what do you want to take place? How can that happen if you don't have boundaries, right? We go into relationships thinking people automatically know, like, yo, this is how you treat a woman. This is how you treat a man. Or this is all the things that my boyfriend is going to do. Like, some of y'all boyfriends may not want to do the things that you want to do, or they may not.
And some of the things you're asking for is too much commitment for just a boyfriend.
Right.
You see what I mean? So, because it goes both ways. I see women will ask things of men. I notice, especially in the younger community, you guys treat relationships like they're marriages, right? And it's like, y'all doing too much too soon. Like, y'all date for 3 weeks and, yo, this is forever. You know how long forever is? That's a long time.
Right.
Can you make it 6 months? Can you make it a year before you claim forever in this relationship?
Exactly.
Right? And so that's the beauty about boundaries. Let me say this, because this is important, right? The bigger the heart, the more important to establish boundaries. Because good people have a tendency to give more, giving to the point of exhausting themselves. And so for those of us who have big hearts, it's vitally important that we establish clear, thick boundaries so that we don't find ourselves overextending, trying to help and save somebody, right? Because everybody, you know, when you have a good heart, it's hard for you to see somebody struggling, seeing somebody hurt, peace, fam, see somebody hurt, and you have the means to help them. And so you feel like, because I have the means, I'm obligated, right? And that's not always the case. You have the means sometimes for yourself, or it can even be for another part of your community. Just because you have the means doesn't mean that you're obligated to help. But if you don't take the time to define what your boundaries are, all right, I'm going to help here and I'm going to help there, but, you know, once I reach this limit, I'm going to stop, because I got to protect myself. And I'm probably so strong on this because I'm a father. And as a father, I can't give my all to the world, and then when I get home, I got none left for my wife. I got none left for my kids, because I done blessed everybody around me. I done blessed the entire world, and now my family gets the scraps of me. That's not fair to them. And so really my philosophy is, if I'm going to give my best, my family gets that. And whatever's left, that's what y'all gonna get. Y'all gonna get the crumbs of me if I have to choose. But if I establish good boundaries, I won't have to choose. I can give you guys my best up to a point and realize I need to stop here so that I have best left for my family, right? Or I'm gonna give my best to my family first, and even they're setting the boundaries where my family cannot consume all of me to where I'm no longer effective in my community. Right? I'm here to be a blessing to my family and to my community. So I got to set boundaries with my kids. All right. We've been playing for about an hour. You know, daddy got to go to work now. Now it's time to transition. And if they cry, if they're sad, give them a hug. But I'm still about to go to work, right? I'm still out of here because I have to set those boundaries. Otherwise, we're going to be homeless, and the park is going to be our home, and we don't want to do that, right? And so establishing those boundaries are important, especially if you have a big heart, because people with big hearts, they feel fulfilled in helping others. Now, and sometimes they attach the service to others as their purpose forgetting that your purpose first is to live, thrive, and breathe. Before you even did anything, God created you to be healthy. You were successful just in taking care of yourself. And a lot of people with big hearts, they don't understand that. We've been conditioned to think the more I help, the more valuable I am. No, your presence makes you valuable, right? You don't got to do all that to be valuable. But because you have gifts and skills, sure, help the world. But don't help the world to the point that you have nothing left for you. Don't help the world to the point that you become suicidal and depressed. Don't help the world to the point that people think that they're entitled to your space and time, right? Where they get mad at you for not answering the phone. Watch out for those people. How you gonna get mad at me for missing your phone call? Like I'm supposed. That don't even make sense. I'm doing other things when you're not around, right? So if anything, you should be worried that I didn't answer. You should be concerned, but to be upset suggests that you have some type of entitlement to my space and my time. No, you don't, right? Setting those boundaries is important. You start to feel guilty about things you should never feel guilty about. Feeling guilty that you're tired. Feeling guilty that you have to say no. Feeling guilty that you don't have the money to give. Feeling guilty that you don't have the space to shelter. You shouldn't feel guilty about those things. Those are not your responsibility. You do your best. So the bigger the heart, the more concrete the boundaries have to be.
Man, good, man. That's another good gem. And I feel like with that, you said something about the phone call, right? Being upset about, me not doing, like, answering the phone all the time. Maybe I need space. Maybe I'm doing other things, right? But you feel like you entitled. And I feel like that's another big thing that people have, entitlement. Because you're my friend, you're supposed to do A, B, and C. Because you're my boyfriend. And I'm not saying that, and I always like to clarify what I mean when I go into something, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't have standards. Your boyfriend shouldn't do anything for you, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your friends, right? But I think, how can those things be done, or how can those people want to do those things if a conversation about boundaries is never had? And then I want to ask you this question. Is it too late to set a boundary? Because a lot of times what we'll do is go in, we click in, we're friends, we're good, we going to the movies, we doing this, we doing that, we having sleepovers, we doing all that. We having fun. The relationship is in the cupcake phase, as people like to say, right? We good. But then the problem arises, right? But we never talked about that scenario. Like, we never had those conversations on what happens when this happens, or what would you do in this moment, right? Because you got to have them conversations, and people don't really think you start having those conversations until you get married, or until you in a romantic relationship. But it's like, why wait until that to do all of that? Then you got to play catch up, and then it's like you in a marriage and you unhappy, or you in a friendship and you unhappy. But had you took the time to express what you upset about now, maybe those things would have happened. Or maybe, right, people don't realize this, you take a risk by doing that, explaining yourself, expressing yourself, right? You could tell somebody your boundaries and they still not respect it, right? But the fact is, you want to be able to say that you did your part. I'm big on it. Like, every time, like, my dad always taught me as a kid, bro, and I used to get so upset because it's like, bro, you're not hearing me. But I wasn't hearing my pops. It's like, bro, I don't care about what somebody at school did. They're not my kid. I take care of you. What did you do? Like, tell me what you did, and we'll let everybody else deal with that. We'll let the faculty, we'll let the staff. I got to be responsible for you. What did you do? And when you get older, you got to be responsible for your part. When you look back on your friendships, your relationship, did you do your part? Like, did you say, this is what I want? Or like, these are the things that I need you to kind of respect. I need you to respect these things, or else the ties will be severed, right? And a lot of times people blame others, or are so upset in a romantic relationships, friendships, because, oh, this person doesn't honor this. This person is constantly hitting me up when I want to sleep. But you never told them that you wanted that.
Exactly.
And if you did tell them that, and you kept seeing the repeated cycle, my father always tell me, bro, like, if a person show you who they are continuously, believe them. Like, you can't, like, if you choose to ignore what you is being shown continuously, like, I'm not saying as soon as somebody do something, just, oh, that's a bad person, or that's an ignorant person, or that's a toxic person. That's one day. But if it's continuous, right, it's to the point where you feel drained. It's to the point where, like, bro, like, this is getting on my nerves. This is coming in between my actual personal life. Then we have to have a conversation. Then we have to sit down and talk. And if that's not working, what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for people, I get it, bro. It's hard to let go. And maybe I look at it, I'm kind of stubborn in a sense because I'm just like a common sense guy. Like I understand,
But
like, yo,
common sense is not so common.
for sure. And so for me, like, okay, right, my friendships have changed with a lot of people that I call friend, right? We don't link up as much as we do. Not because I hate them, not because they hate me. I don't hope, right? But just speaking from my end, right? I'm doing different things. Not to say I'm better than anybody, or I'm in a different space. Certain things I don't have time for. Certain things I don't want to concern myself with or consume my time with because that's just not me. Like y'all can do that. That's cool. Like hit me up when we go into the mall or hit me up when we hooping. Like I don't want to do that. Like I ain't judging y'all because y'all are doing that, but I don't want to do that. That's a boundary that you respect. Like I have friends that drink and smoke, right? But we set that boundary, right? They know I don't do that, so it's not, oh, here's a drink or here's a blunt, right? It's a respect factor, right?
Yep.
And crazy enough, I didn't have to set that. I just told them, like, yo, I don't do that. Or they've been around me long enough to know, like, it's certain things I don't do. Call me boring, call me whatever, I'll be that. But it's like, we set that boundary, and this is what it is, and they respect that. We don't have problems in that area. Right. And the places that we do have problems, we talk about it like men. Or if it's a female friend of mine, we talk about it like adults. Right. It's the same thing with every relationship. Okay, you tired, but are you really tired? And somebody says something to me, I've heard this plenty of times, right? I'm tired of this person doing this. Like they don't stop this. But you never communicated that. And if you have, and it keeps happening, why are you still that person's friend? And it's not to say that you cut them off completely. You just watch how you deal with them. Like, bro, I can't be in this space with you. Like, we can associate, but we can't be friends right now because you don't respect my boundaries. But it's so hard for people to let go of those friendships that 5+ years, 10+ years, or maybe you've been friends with somebody 3 years and it's just a tight knit bond. So what do you say to that person for setting boundaries with that person? And they've tried talking, they've tried communicating, or let's do two scenarios. The first one, let's say the person has communicated their boundaries and told them or talked to them about it, and the person still seems to not, respect their boundaries. What do they do on their end? Where do they go from there? That's the first scenario.
So here's the thing, right? So if you set a boundary and somebody is violating your boundaries, the first question you want to ask yourself is why? Why are they violating these boundaries? Is it a cultural thing? Did we establish, some type of habit? For example, I remember when I used to smoke heavy, when I quit smoking and I hung around my smoking friends, sometimes they would pass me the blunt out of habit. And then when I wouldn't take it, but, oh, that's right, my bad, bro. And then, it just keeps going because we established time and let things kind of build, let them learn, establish a new habit. But if it's something, like I don't want to be touched a certain way, or I don't want to, I don't want to receive phone calls after a certain time, or you can't speak to me in that type of tone of voice, right? When it's those types of things, and they either refuse to make the adjustments or they don't have the ability to make the adjustments, the only wise solution is to end the relationship. And the problem with ending the relationship, when people hear end the relationship, they add subconsciously forever, right? They add that part. No one's saying that, but they hear. When I say end the relationship, they add forever, right? And the problem with that is they can grow, they can change, people can evolve. So nothing really is forever. You need to live long enough to see how long it goes, right? But for now, we might have to end the relationship and call it what it is. Because that's the other thing about boundaries. Boundaries have to be clear. So if we're dealing with like a romantic relationship, right? And your significant other is violating your boundaries. I'm just gonna throw it in the air, right? Let's say you tell her, yo, I don't want you looking through my phone, and she's looking through your phone anyway, right? Consistently looking through your phone. Now you're frustrated. I talked about it 1,000 times. She just keeps doing it, but you like her. You know what I mean? She's cool, and she got other things going for her, but this one boundary she just keeps violating, right? What people like to do is they like to create a gray space called the break. Let's just take a break, right? That's a trap. It's a trap Because how do we conduct ourselves in a break? What's the boundaries in a break? It's not clear. And so now we position ourselves to, one, get hurt, B, to get abused, C, to be the abuser. Because now we're doing things that we think is okay because we're in a break. And so, what does that mean? Like, what does that really mean? And most people don't even have the conversation. I said, look, we're either together or we're breaking up. We can have space, but even space has to be for an allotted time. How long you need space for? Because if we have space but we're still together, then the boundaries of the relationship still apply, right? That means, so that doesn't mean you can call old dude because I'm asking for some space, or that don't mean you can, turn into a hot girl because I'm asking for space. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever was inappropriate during the relationship is still inappropriate during the space. I'm just taking that time to get myself together. And it's only fair to tell them how long that is, because space for an indefinite amount of time is a breakup. Yeah, I broke it up, right? You can't just be like, yo, I don't know how long I need space for, just leave me alone. No, that's a breakup. You just
right.
The idea of that is what's stopping you from being clear. See, that's the word I want to emphasize. Clear. You need to have clear boundaries. So if somebody is consistently violating your clear boundaries, that person is not a safe person for you. And I say for you because everybody has different boundaries. And so what you don't accept, somebody else might be completely comfortable with. But based off of who you are and who you want to be, if they're constantly violating your boundaries, have the maturity to acknowledge they're not safe for me. You don't have to drag their character through the mud unless it's something truly ridiculous like rape, molestation, thievery, that type of stuff, those extreme stuff. Yeah, by all means, call a spade, right? But I'm from Jersey, right? When we talk, we get real passionate, right? When I first moved to the South, that was intimidating because they don't talk like that. So when I get real passionate, I'm like, yeah. They're like, yo, why are you so angry? I'm not angry. I'm chilling. This is how we talk. And so this is a cultural difference, right? So they like to call us from the North, they like to call us rude because it's not how they do things. But we're not rude, we're passionate. See, so there's a difference. There's no need to the word just left me, right? Degrade. There's no need to degrade my culture or my personality because it's not in harmony with yours. Be mature enough to acknowledge those different cultural differences. And I would tell anybody who's listening, that's why you want to travel. That's why you want to explore, so you can get out of your little bubble, because the world is much bigger than your little bubble. Wherever you grew up, east side, west side, that's a tiny fraction of what the world has to offer. The world operates very different outside of your little bubble. You go to Cali, the world is different in Cali. You go to New York, the world is different in New York. You hit Atlanta, the world is different there. You go to Chicago, go to Texas, wherever you go to Egypt, right? You go to Jamaica, you go to Paris, wherever you go to Ghana. The world is different. And if you stay in your little bubble, you might misunderstand somebody's cultural difference and call it a violation. Now, whatever the case is, if it makes you uncomfortable and it's repetitive, end the relationship. That sounds extreme, but you don't want to give an abuser, or because they're not always an abuser, but you don't want someone who's unsafe to be around you longer than what's necessary. Because the boundaries are for you, it's not for them. You don't set boundaries to make them a better person. You set boundaries to protect you, right? And so your boundaries is not a ministry for them. Your boundaries is not a service for them. Your boundaries is not to protect them. It's to protect you. So whatever it is, if it's that uncomfortable, you got to cut it. You got to cut it. Not forever, but for a time. Because once again, your boundaries can change. But if it's, in most cases, depending on what it is, if somebody wants to be in a relationship with you, they will respect your boundaries. You know what I mean? And so you want to make them clear so that you can see who truly values you as a person. If you tell someone, yo, I don't want you cussing around my kids, if they care about you and they want to be around you and your kids, I promise you they're going to stop cussing. Because that's such a minor request. And if they're like, oh, that's just who I am, I can't help it, then guess what? They forfeit access to you and your kids. It's simple. We don't got to make it any more complicated. And sometimes, and I'm going to say that then we can talk about the second scenario, sometimes the absence, that separation, gives them time to reflect and really ask themselves, yo, did they ask me something that's ridiculous, or am I just being immature about the situation?
Right.
You know, maybe what they're asking for is not that big of a deal. And the relationship we had is much more important than whatever that was that they said they couldn't get over, right? And so space is the best way to test the value of the relationship. I always say if you leave somebody alone and you don't miss them, they wasn't that valuable to you in the first place.
Right.
If your life ain't different, when like y'all stop talking and it's like a regular day for like continuously, then it wasn't really that deep to begin with. It might have been convenient, it might have even been fun, but it wasn't deep. When it's a deep relationship, you miss that presence. You recognize when that presence is absent, and that can cause you to go into that reflective mode.
Okay, so the second scenario, right? What if a person doesn't communicate that, and let's say they're in a 2 to 3 year friendship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they've kind of been hesitant to, communicate, or let's just say any type of relationship. It's been 2 to 3 years. They've been kind of hesitant because of what you stated at the beginning. They feel like they had that guilt. I would like this person, whether it's a romantic relationship or friendship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose this person if I speak up. And somehow I'm doing a disservice to them if I speak up about what I don't like, right?
Mm-hmm.
That even sounds crazy, even coming out of my mouth right now. That
Right.
sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people don't even think that deep into it. But what about the person who doesn't say anything but is always irritated, who's always upset, right? Who's always feeling like, dang, why do they keep doing this? But you never established the boundary.
Right.
Is it too late, or how can we work through that?
Okay. So I'm gonna give you some real practical steps here, right? Number one, it's never too late. It's never too late to establish boundaries, right? Because even if it was something that was irritating you for a long time, you just never said nothing, or it's something new that's irritating you. It didn't bother you before, but now it's starting to bother you. It's never too late to establish boundaries. Never, right? So that's number one. Anybody who feels like, oh, I can't say nothing now because I tolerated it before, just because you tolerated it yesterday doesn't mean it's acceptable today. So there's nothing wrong with establishing boundaries. Second, you want to communicate those boundaries clearly. The issue isn't communicating the boundaries, is how you communicate the boundaries. That's where the problem comes. So this is where the tips are going to come in, right? Mm-hmm. Because the way you communicate a thing can determine whether or not it's received or rejected, right? So the first thing you want to consider when communicating your boundaries is to not communicate it in an accusatory type of way, mm-hmm. right? So let's say it's someone who calls you late, right? They call you, like you have a sleep pattern, but you never shared the sleep pattern with them, mm-hmm. and they always call you at like 10:30 at night, 11 at night, right? And you're trying to go to sleep, you know what I mean? But every time they call, you answer because that's your friend. And so y'all talking, and you find yourself always going to bed at 2 a.m. because they keep calling you mad late, but you never said nothing.
Right?
All right, so boom. Now you want to set that boundary, like, yo, bro, you can't call me past whatever time. Let's just sake of illustration. You can't call me past 10 o'clock. Like, if it's 10 o'clock and you want to call me, don't call me. 10 o'clock is my cutoff time. You cannot call me past 10 o'clock, right? You can say it just like that. You can say, hey, listen, I'm working on my sleep patterns. I'm trying to get better quality sleep. And, when we talk late at night, it affects that. So I would prefer that you don't call me past 10, right? Mm-hmm. Versus, yo, bro, you stay calling me mad late. Like, you act like I'm not trying to sleep or something. Like, I got work. I got school. Like, why you keep calling? Like, all that energy, that type of energy, that's unnecessary to establish a boundary. You don't got to accuse them of anything. You don't got to make them the bad guy. You simply got to express what you need. It's very simple, right? And that goes for whatever it is. Let's say, here's a good one, right? You got the homie who always wants to go out to eat, but they ain't never got no money. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, they're always making requests to go, and it's them. They be like, yo, bro, why don't we hit up such? they ain't never paying for nothing. It's always you paying, right? So that can be frustrating, but that's your road dog. You got it, so you don't say nothing. But there's a point where it starts ticking you off. Same thing. You don't got to be like, yo, bro, you always asking to go out to eat, and you never got money. Like, you're always broke. Like, stop doing that. That's dead. Like, we done. You don't got to necessarily say it like that. You can say, hey, fam, I would prefer that if you're gonna suggest a restaurant, that you're also able to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's the same thing, but saying it in a way that's not like you're always doing this or accusing them, trying to make them feel bad because you don't know the situation. You know what I mean? Or you could say, yo, or when they do it again, yo, let's go here and there. You could say, all right, bro, listen, I don't mind going, but if you don't got it, tell me now. Just tell me in the front. If you're ever hungry and you don't got it, just let me know that you're hungry and you don't got it. And I can determine if I have it to give you. Don't put me in that awkward position where we get there and I think you got it. Or don't put me in that position where I'm saying no to you because I'm assuming you don't got it because you never have it, right? Like that. Let's just communicate it in a way where it doesn't bring them down, right? To the best of your ability. Then you also want to consider the time. Because if your friend, the timing, because if your friend is calling you and they have a problem, that's not the time to talk about the boundaries you're trying to set up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they call you, your grandma just died, Joe. Oh, word, you know, it's funny that you called because, you know, you've been crossing a lot of these boundaries. That's not the time to do that. Like, they just said their grandma died. That's the time to be a friend. Yo, my condolences, what you need from me, XYZ. Then as time progresses, then you can express those boundaries, right? Now, I say that, but I want to add a little asterisk there.
Yeah, I was
People,
about to ask a question.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I know what street you about to go down.
Yeah, because some people always got something going on. They always got a problem, right? You know those people, they always got a problem. Now, before you even talk about boundaries, you want to ask yourself, why am I friends with someone who always got problems? Like, because honestly, and I think we said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. Yo, what's going on, Queen? Your friends are a reflection of you. No matter how you slice it, people want to debate it, whatever the case is. Those who you consider friends, they reflect you in some shape, form, or fashion. And some of your friends reflect who you are, and some of your friends reflect where you're going, and some of your friends are reflecting who you could be if you don't make new choices.
Mm.
And so no matter how you cut it, if you feel an attraction to that person, that's because something in them is reflecting you, period. And so when you have the type of people where it's like they always got something going on, if you feel led to help them, then you start having that type of conversation, right? And so in that, you need to still set those boundaries because now the relationship is about to vibe. You don't know all the dynamics of their life. As you get to know them, you might realize, hey, you know, you might even ask them, hey, do you know that every day there's like always something wrong? And they might even agree with you. Yeah, yo, if it's not one thing, it's another. Like, you know how people are. And then you ask like, yo, do you want to live like that? Is that the way you want to live? And kind of see where their head is at. Because they might not want to live like that, and you might have some tools. Or now you can be a support system. Or you can be an accountability partner. You can help them become better. Or you can make the decision to love them as they are and just know when they come to you, always going to be some drama. Or you can make the decision to be like, you know what? I don't need that type of energy in my life. You have the right, the freedom to choose. There is no pressure. You see what I'm saying? So now here's the last thing. You set the boundaries. They're new boundaries. You set the boundaries. You set them in a respectful way. Set them in a nice way. But they don't like the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a new boundary. They don't like it. You have to give them the space to process the new boundaries. Don't just assume the friendship is over because they didn't like what you had to say. It is not your fault that they felt offended. It's not your fault that they had an emotional response to the boundaries that you set. You didn't set those boundaries for them. You set those boundaries for you, right? Always remember that. Your boundaries is not about them. It ain't got nothing to do with them. These are my boundaries for me. And so if you have a personal response to my boundaries, I'll give you some space to process that. Your boundaries might create some insecurities in them. And they might need to process that. Your boundaries might trigger something from their past, and they need space to process that. Your boundaries might cause them to question their character, and they need to process that. Give them the space to process the boundaries. Don't be so quick to write them off because they don't like those boundaries. But at the same time, don't change the boundaries simply because they don't like it. Love yourself enough to let them go if they choose to leave. Because those boundaries are for you and not for them. Make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's one question answered. How do we create boundaries? Now, how do we work through boundaries, right? So how do we work through boundaries? Like I think you kind of answered that too, like as far as like don't leave right away because they don't agree with it or it's an emotional response or they automatically don't like it. Because like you said, boundaries can change, right? If you so used to, like you said, you brought the instance up with your boys, y'all smoke, that was a habit, right? But then when you stopped, it was like they still passed it to you out of habit. And it's like, oh, my fault, bro. Like, I forgot you don't do that no more. So it's like, what if a boundary changes in a day or in a week or in a month? What does the person on the receiving end of that, like a person who is told, like, this was something I was okay with at first, but now it's not. So how does that person on the receiving end work through that?
Yeah, they're going to have to do some self-reflecting, because what was the glue that kept us together? There are some friends that we were just friends because we smoked. So when I stopped smoking, that relationship was dead. That's what kept us, together. There were some friends, we were just friends because of the school we went to or because of the clubs that we went to. You know what I mean? There were some friends, where it was the jobs that we had. Those are really shallow relationships, but they're still valuable relationships. You know what I mean? When I was working at that job, they were there to kind of help me through. You know what I mean? I'm not there no more. The friendship is over. If when I needed to smoke, there was always someone I could call. That's what we did. If I had to go to the party, and someone I could call. Boom, whatever the case is, those relationships, while they're shallow, they're still valuable. And so when you set a boundary, if you're on the receiving end, someone sets a boundary with you where it's like, yo, this is not something I want to do. Like, let's say I'll use the late night thing. Let's say you had a friend who you can call in the late night. They were always up and ready, and you kind of use it as a way to cope through life, right? And so you called them during the late night. Y'all might have had other conversations, but you called them during the late night, and they were always available. And one day they hit you with that, yeah, this has to stop because, it's not good for me for whatever reason, whether it's the sleep or whether it's, I'm in a relationship now and I use that time to bond with my whatever the case is. Now there's a boundary that says you can't call them late. Now that was important to you. Now you got to ask yourself, how important was it to me? Because now it's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It is not your job to, and I want to say this clear, it is not your job to be like, yo, that ain't fair, that ain't right, how you gonna take that from me? This is what we have. No, it's their boundaries to protect them. And when you start going into that mode, you sound unsafe, right? Nobody is setting up boundaries to hurt you, and I want to make that clear. If you're setting up boundaries to hurt somebody else, it's not boundaries, it's petty. You're being petty. So we're not going to call your pettiness boundaries, right? There's a big difference. Your boundaries are not about anybody else. You're not going to be like, oh, well, because she acting funny, I'm just not going to hug her no more, and I'm going to tell her that's my new boundary. No, you're being petty, you're being childish, you're being immature, and you're not even worthy of her presence anymore, right? That's petty. Right. We're not playing those games, right? I want to make that clear. I want to talk to mature people where it's a boundary when it's meant to protect you. It's a weapon when it's meant to hurt somebody else. And so boundaries are not weapons. And so you keep that in the mindset. So when someone sets a boundary on you and it's something that you enjoy, but now it's at a stop, keep that mindset. Yo, they're setting this boundary to protect them. They're not setting this boundary to hurt me. And if you can keep that, then you can ask yourself, can this relationship continue? Because you have the right to make that decision. And if that was the bulk of the relationship, if that was the foundation of the relationship, then y'all might just go your separate ways, and that's cool. That's okay. We don't got to demonize it. We don't got to call them, X, Y, Z, whatever. We just go our separate ways. But if there's a way to maintain relationship in spite of the new boundaries, then keep pressing forward. We don't got to make it a big deal neither. You know what I'm saying? But as the receiver, the one where the boundaries is set, and now you have to readjust how you deal with them, you will just want to remember it's not a weapon towards you. They're not attacking you. And that requires great self-awareness and great maturity. We don't realize how our insecurities make us feel like we're always being attacked. Many of us, we don't even realize that. Like if you used to cuss around someone and they say, "Yo, stop cussing around me," and you hear that and you feel like they're attacking you, you don't realize that that's your own insecurity projecting out. And what they're setting as a boundary, you're taking it as an attack because you're not confident in that thing. You're still insecure in that thing. And so that's something that you need to check, you know, or the late night texting. Like, yo, don't text me late. You feel like they're attacking you. Why? Why were you texting them late in the first place? Why do you only text them late? What's going on there? Maybe there is some ulterior motive that you need to check, you know, within yourself, right? You know, or whatever. If you was having sex with someone and they say, yo, I don't want to have a sexual relationship with you anymore. Like, I'm deading that. I am saving myself for marriage. You know how many guys they feel violated when a woman makes that decision? And vice versa, women feel violated too. But usually it's the men who be like, what you saying? Like, we've been doing this and now we're just gonna stop. She has the right to stop, bro. And that's not an attack on you. She has the right to stop. Anytime we feel entitled to somebody else's space and time and energy, that's when we become the abuser. We want to be very careful. Even my wife, who I love and who is committed to me, I will never violate her space. When she receives me, when I come to her, it is her job to receive me if she wants to. But if she said, no, babe, I need some space right now, I have to respect that. I might be disappointed. I might miss her. I might have to process the fact that the plans I had for that moment won't manifest, but I can't say she's doing something to me. She is protecting herself. And if I truly love her like I say I do, I'm going to respect that and honor that. Babe, take your time. Whatever it is, figure it out. Is there something I can do? Is there something that I'm doing that makes you uncomfortable? Have that real conversation, but never am I going to make it she's attacking me, right? Because first off, what does that do to my perspective of who she is in my life? How could I think that a friend or a wife or a significant other, when they set their boundaries, they're attacking me? Why would I ever even assume that on the front end? What does that say about my perspective in my close relationships? Did I ever really trust them? You know what I mean? Like, to think that someone who loves you is attacking you for protecting themselves, you have to now reevaluate yourself at this point. Like, why would that be the first thought? Like, if we're homies, like I think I said this before. If I hit you on IG, yo, what's good, bro? And you don't respond for like 2 weeks, I'm not thinking, yo, Leon bugging. Like, I must have said, that last podcast, I must have said something that got him tight. Leon, but that would never, my mind goes to, yo, I hope he all right. Wait, is this final time? Maybe it's final time. He might be, you know what I mean? Like, my brain is going somewhere else because I would never think that you are attacking me. Unless somewhere in the back of my mind, I always felt that you had that in you.
Right.
Oh, we going a little deep now, right? Because you know how we keep those snakes as friends when we know they snakes. You know, I don't even know why we're going there, but I feel it in my spirit. Some of you got to stop treating your snakes like they're friends. They're not your friends. It's only a matter of time till they bite you. And you know, you feel that in your energy. You feel the snake in your energy, but you still keep them around out of loyalty because you grew up in the same neighborhood or y'all went to the same school, but you see their snakish behavior and you don't realize the danger in keeping a snake around you. You can't get mad at the snake for doing snake things. I'm going to get off that. I'm going to leave that alone.
All right, so we got a question here. Before I ask these last two questions, we're going to wrap up. It says, are you saying is consistent disregard of boundary abuse?
Yes, I'm saying that. I'm saying that unapologetically. Consistent disregard of a boundary is abuse, period. And that's Dr. Bailey there. That's my brother. That's my guy. He knows my heart. But I will die on that hill. If a boundary is set and someone is consistently violating, disregarding those boundaries, they are an abuser. If it is a cultural issue, even if the cultures are different, we as humans have the ability to adjust and adapt. And
Yep.
even if it takes some time, we can do it. We can learn new languages. We can learn new customs. So you can only use that. I grew up Haitian, right? Let me put some context. I grew up Haitian, right? In the Haitian community, the women kiss everybody on the cheek. The men kiss the women in the cheek. Like when you walk into a room, first off, in the Haitian community, when you walk into a room, you greet everybody, whether you know them or not. You greet them, not a way. No, you walk to them, and you either shake their hand or you kiss them on the cheek. That's how we do in the Haitian community. All my Zoes, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? And so, dealing with American girls, I used to kiss them on the cheek as a greeting because that's what we did in Haiti. Like, well, not in Haiti, but in the Haitian community, that's how we greet. And it took me a while to realize that these girls thought I was flirting with them because Americans don't greet each other like that. It took me a while to like pick up on that. I think somebody even told me, like, yo, I see you got all these ladies. I'm like, what are you talking about? These are my friends. Like, well, you always kissing on them, like kissing on them. I'm just saying hi. Like, what are you talking about? And once I realized, oh, Americans don't really do that, I had to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make the adjustment, and I was able to do it, right? It wasn't hard. It wasn't hard. And so if someone is consistently violating your boundaries, they're an abuser, period. We don't even they're an abuser. And if you want to keep an abuser in your circle, that's your decision to make. I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it. And like I said before, at the very least, if we don't say they're an abuser, because abuser might be a strong word, at the very least, the most minimum I will go is I will say they are unsafe for you. Mm-hmm. That's the minimum. That at the very least, they are unsafe for you.
Okay. And so with that, man, what do you say? Like, I know how you brought up the point of like, that's not a boundary, that's petty, right? How do you tell the difference? Because a lot of people are good at, being slick with a lot of stuff. So how can you tell a boundary from being petty? You gave a little bit example, but what if it's something that you may not be able to see right away? How do you know? You brought up the weapon case, but I want to kind of touch on that again. Like, how can you tell if it's a boundary or you just being like, you just doing that just because?
Oh, like you personally? Okay. If it's you personally, you gotta ask yourself. Well, you gotta figure out when you made that decision to set that boundary, right? So, I'll use the hug and no girl, right? Let's say shorty that you hug all the time, whatever the case is, and y'all not really dating, but you kind of like her a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And you think she kind of like you because y'all spend a lot of time together. So y'all hug like real hard. Y'all hug like a different type of hug, not the church hug, but y'all be hugging for real, right? Okay. And then one day you see her hugging somebody else the same way, and you felt the way. Mm-hmm. And so now you're like, all right, so I'm gonna switch up how I hug her. You have the right to do that. You have the right to do that, but you might be petty. You might just be tapping into the petty realm. Your feelings were hurt because you thought you had something special. You didn't realize that she was treating you how she treats everybody else. And you're not taking the time to process that, right? You're just reacting to what you've seen. You have the right. You have the right to do that. You have the right to make the adjustment, but you might just be a little petty. That might be pettiness, right? Creeping in. And so anytime your boundary is impulsive, or your boundary is with the intent of hurting the other person, that is when you are stepping to the realm of pettiness. That is when you're stepping in the realm of weaponizing, and it's no longer boundaries. So if I